think the thing no one tells you, right, is that like kids they want to have fun. They want to be a part of the team. And I think one thing coaches don't do a great job of is making every kid feel valued. These kids are smart. They know who's the best. They know who's the most talented. They see it. And not every kid's going to have that ability, but how can parents make their kids feel valued? Where I might not be the home run hitter on the team, right? In the NBA, I might not score 35 points, but I can be the best defensive player in the league, make millions of dollars. I can go shut down someone. So I think the thing no one tells you is kids want to feel valued. They all do not want to be the best. They want to know they're on a team and feel valued.
I have been waiting a long time to have this conversation on things no one tells you about youth sports. And when I had the chance to do it with a star like Jeff Francoeur, I was like, this is amazing. Okay. So you guys, I can't wait to share this conversation and the things that came out of this from Jeff's perspective, because it really, really helped me. And I'm thinking that it might be really insightful for you. But welcome to this episode of Things No One Tells You. I want to set the table on why I'm in a hotel. And it's because we're still in the midst of the Winter Olympics, which is so amazing. It's such an awesome experience. I feel like I might do an episode just about this shortly. But the thing I wanted to share is yesterday we ran this story about athletes from countries that are underrepresented countries in the Winter Olympics. So countries that are places that, the athletes come, maybe they've got one athlete, but they're not known for prowess or participation in the Winter Olympics. And what was so awesome about it was the whole thing was built on, yes, when they win medals, it's surprising and really special, but just being there is the thing. And like, just really leaning into the Olympic spirit of respect, excellence, friendship, all these things. And I was like, it made me cry because every Olympic story does. But also, as it plays into this conversation that you guys are about to hear, I was like, this is really what it's all about. And please, let's not lose sight of the fact that when we're talking about youth sports and navigating kids, even if they've got monster talent that you can see that's exciting, at the core of it, it's about the journey, right? And it's about getting there and honing in on that excellence in a way that also helps these kids feel like they are being seen and that they are able to have fun at what they're doing. So, okay, Jeff Francoeur has a branded content platform that is called Pure Athlete. And it's amazing because he and his co-hosts, they basically are on a mission to talk about, and they talk to experts, they talk about things amongst themselves. They are really trying to open the conversation about youth sports in a way that also can get parents involved to really make that journey the most enjoyable, also the most helpful. But they do it through their podcast, which is amazing, and using just their platform in general, which is super, super cool. Jeff is a Major League Baseball superstar, played for several teams, notably the Atlanta Braves. He now is a broadcaster for TBS MLB broadcasts. And it's funny because me and Melvin ran into him at a hotel swimming pool. This is a few years ago when the Braves were playing the Marlins. And so the whole team was there at the hotel, and I hadn't seen him in a while since when I really covered him at ESPN and other places. And it was so great to talk to him. He was about to get started in this broadcast journey. And anyway, we connected there. So here, when we had the chance to do this conversation, he really came to the table with all of these just incredible thoughts. And he gets really honest about now the fact that he's a dad and a coach for his own kids and about what's most important, and hearing the perspective from a world-class athlete who has been through every situation, on his journey, but also in the majors. And he tells this story about getting sent back down, you guys, that is hilarious, but also so impactful and so powerful. I can't wait for you guys all to hear it. So, Major League Baseball superstar Jeff Francoeur talking about youth sports. Jeff, it is so good to talk to you. I'm so excited to cover a lot of different things. But first of all, it is wonderful that the last time I saw you was a few years ago, and we were you were with the Atlanta Braves traveling, right? Following them.
I was, yes.
We were in Miami. I was there. We ended up at the same hotel, and I was with my family, I think. But yeah, how's life been since?
Man, it was great. So I was actually, I think that was like when I just got into announcing. And so
Yes.
my wife, and I think I had three. I think she was pregnant maybe with the fourth at that time, but I had to go to the field like four. And she's like, do not leave me by myself. But it's great. We got four kids now, 12, 10, 7, and 5. So we're rocking and rolling.
You're in it. You are
Yes.
in it. So
Yes.
and what is your daily like? What is your schedule these days?
Well, I'll tell you honestly, from when the championship series ends in October until end of March, like I'm home all the time, which is
Okay.
great. Like we do
Yeah.
family dinners every night. We're, doing stuff with the kids. And then I just actually re-upped for 3 years with TBS to take me through the end of
Congrats.
28. Thank you. So I'll start doing the Tuesday night, games of the week, but it just works great with my schedule because I fly out late Monday night, do the game Tuesday with Brian Anderson and Ron Darling, and then we're
Yeah.
home Wednesday morning, and I'm home the whole week. So it's been a really good change.
I remember when I saw you that you were getting ready for it. And I feel like I know that you're confident, but you kind of didn't know how it was
Oh
going to go,
no,
right?
no, yeah.
What did you expect?
I go back and listen to the first broadcast I ever did, and I thought, how did they not fire me right on the spot? Like I didn't shut up. I was yapping the whole time. But I think it's so cool, right? We talk about people's insecurities at any age. I don't know if you read the last few days, like Kevin Burkhardt's a dear friend of mine. He was with
Yes.
SNY when I played for the Mets for those 2 years. And like seeing Brady and how far he's come and doing it, and Burkhardt talking about how insecure, like you
Yeah.
know as well as I do, Tom Brady got under center. He was never insecure. He got
Yes.
behind that microphone, and I remember Kevin Burkhardt telling me he was like white as a ghost. He was so nervous. And so that's the thing, but it takes reps, and it's really been a great second career for me, and I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. What kind of perspective has it given you on the game? How's that been?
How hard it really is. Like,
Really?
I mean, oh, absolutely. We went down to the All-Star game, it was in Atlanta last year, the Derby and All-Star game. So I took my kids and we sat right down by like the owner's box. And I remember sitting there watching Paul Skeens throw 100. And I turned to my wife and I'm like, how did I ever hit that? Like, I'm like, how did that? But it makes you appreciate the players and how good they are because the game of baseball, I mean, you've been around it. It is so tough and you fail constantly.
I mean, and that's wild. And when you fail, do you feel like failing in baseball might feel harder than failing in other sports because of how sometimes it does feel like a solo thing?
Yeah, exactly. They say, baseball is a team sport, but ultimately you go
Yeah.
up there to hit. It's you versus the pitcher. There's nothing your teammate can do to help you out and all this stuff. So, yeah, I mean, it is. So, that if anything, it's taught me to appreciate the talent that these players have.
And realize like what a badass you are. Is that
Yeah,
like
well, that I was able to do it back in the day. And it's funny now because my daughter's 12, and she's a really good softball player. But I'm like,
amazing?
will you freaking listen to me? Like, I know what I'm talking about. We're paying for her to get hitting lessons from someone else. And I remember my wife going, don't you know? And I'm like, she don't listen to me. Like, what do you want me to
That's
do? But
hilarious.
now she's old enough, right, that she starts to understand what dad did, see video, and she's like, all right, I'll listen.
That's so cool. You know what's funny? So my son, he's basketball is his favorite thing right now. But he played baseball for the first time last season. And I was so proud of him because he did not, that was
Yeah,
like his first time doing it. My son's
tough.
11. But honestly, Jeff, I wanted to vomit every time he went to the plate. And I've covered baseball for years. And I was like, how does no one tell you this about baseball when you have a vested interest? Like now it gave me a different perspective on how the wives must feel, how like, because I was just like, my mom heart's like, oh, A, you don't want him to get hit. But B, I'm like, you strike out and you're just like, oh God, is he okay?
Well,
My God.
you realize that they're human beings, right? Like
Yeah.
that they are, and even though they do things at an amazing level, I covered the postseason last year with the National League, and Mookie Betts had the worst postseason, and he's he's unbelievable. He's one of the best players. But what I loved about Mookie was to see everything he did push towards the team, and we're winning, we're doing great. Like that's someone who's confident in himself, and he's building up his teammates, and that's why we have a Mookie Betts poster in my son's room. Like he loves them.
Oh, I love
You
that.
know?
I love that. Okay, so So you have a platform, Pure Athlete, that you've now done
Hmm.
for a few years. It is amazing. Can you explain how it started and what the goal really has been?
Yeah, so there's two guys that live in Atlanta that are older than me. They've had kids go through college tennis, different things, and so they've been talking about this for like 4 years. And I got into some, speaking for different companies, different things I do. So there's one company I met with this guy. I was speaking for him down in Atlanta, downtown. But we met at Chick-fil-A a few times and we started talking about our kids. And he was telling me this idea. And I was just getting into, right, like the coaching. My oldest daughter, do we do travel ball? Do we do rec ball? My son, who, like I told you, so I have two sons. My 10-year-old son hates baseball, wants nothing
Oh
to do
yeah.
with it, can't stand it. So we do lacrosse, we do football. Like he loves it. But it was like, so I'm getting into all this and I was telling him all this and he's like, we talked about starting a podcast and doing something. And at that time, I was still doing like 100 games for the Braves and TBS, and my kids were getting older. So I stepped back from the Braves and I do like 20 home games just here in
Yeah.
Atlanta when I got nothing going on. But, it was more of like I saw such a need for transparency for parents to get. I feel like most parents I guess it's no different than politics, right? Like I feel like 80% of the people are normal. Like I really do. And then you have this 10% here and this 10% here that are whack jobs, right? Like completely crazy. And I feel like in youth sports, 80% of parents want the same thing for their kids, right? Like they want them to have fun. They want them, but there's these other sides that are pulling them, telling them their kid's going to be left behind if they don't do lessons at 9 years old. That, it's all about winning, where I'm all about development of these kids. And so I just was like, you know what, man, I'm going to dig in. We started it. And then the more we reached out to these great athletes, the more they wanted to come on and share their story. And I was like, I think we're on to something. And it's kind of
So
just taken off.
yeah. I mean, it's like really striking a nerve. It's sort of like striking that vulnerability in people, and it's also hitting on the thing no one tells you, right? So
Yeah.
from your perspective, what is the thing no one tells you that you have learned from your journey?
Man, I mean, there's so many different ways you could go it, but I think the thing no one tells you, right, is that like kids just they want to have fun. They want to be a part of the team. And I think one thing coaches don't do a great job of is making every kid feel valued. Like, I coach my 12-year-old girls softball team. I could I could ask them. So I did this with my daughter before last year. I gave her a pen and I got a pen. I was like, you write the batting order for our 11 girls that you would do, and I'm going to do it for what I want to do as a coach. And we were one girl off the 6 and 7 holes switching. And so my point is, these kids are smart. They know who's the best. They know who's the most talented. They see it. And not every kid's going to have that ability, but how can parents make their kid feel valued? Where I might not be the home run hitter on the team, right? I might not shoot, it's like in the NBA. I might not score 35 points, but I can be the best defensive player in the league, make millions of dollars. I can go shut down someone. So I think the thing no one tells you is kids want to feel valued. They all do not want to be the best. They want to know they're on a team and feel valued.
And what age range do you think that that's really important? And it might be big. I don't know. I haven't asked you that question.
So I categorize in Pure Athlete 3 different stages, like the kindergarten through 5th grade, where, man, I think it's all about development, kids learning how to play, learning what a force play is, learning what a 2-3 zone defense is, teaching nothing but the game. Yes, you want them to compete, you want them to feel that energy and that edge to try to win, but winning does not mean everything. I say you get to middle school, 6th or 8th grade, you have to start deciding, like, do I want to do this at high school, right? Because if you do, you're going to have to put
Ugh,
work in it. You
so
know,
yeah.
you are. Like I tell my
Yeah.
daughter, we have a cage at home hitting net, and I'm like, you have to go down there and put a ball on the tee. You have to go down there and do your footwork drills. If not, in the next few years, these girls are going to pass you by. And then
And
I think at the high school level, then it's like all in, right? Like if you're a sophomore, junior, and you can play in college, like go for it, man. I implore parents, like go for it then. If that means you have to go to Colorado for 4 days for a camp, like do it. But these kids now, I don't know how much like they're traveling to Colorado from DC with a 9-year travel baseball team. And I'm like, what are we doing?
I think it's scary. First of all, you said 80, you think 80% is normal. That is really generous. And I think that's wonderful. Like, no, I'm serious.
I'm also an optimist. I am
I,
like
and
that's.
that, no, that is important and wonderful. And I don't mean that badly. Yeah. So a couple things. I think that, having a middle schooler, I love hearing that breakdown of ages because you're exactly right. It's like what we've started to see is whether it's baseball or basketball, and basketball for us has been interesting because you start to realize as kids are really getting into maybe more of like what they like at that age, if that's when
Mhm.
you agree that that happens, and you're like, oh, they really want to make a travel team. And
Yeah.
then, you know, if you don't make that travel team, and then the reality kind of sets in, at least like for us realizing like, oh, if this is really what a child loves, and if they're not making that now, those spots are so much fewer and far between in high
Yeah.
school. So, right. So then it's like, to your point, the realization that like, okay, you need the whatever it is, the training or maybe the outside help, and certainly the practice all the time. But I think that is really interesting. And do you think that at what age do you think it's important to consider sort of that outside training? Or is there a time that you would say, don't do it until?
Well, I have all these parents that are like, my kid gets a hitting lesson at 9 years old, or like
Yeah.
there's a 9 year old kid doing QB lessons twice a week. And I'm like, I just don't. I personally, I've asked my dad this because I was a great athlete. Like I was. I'm not bragging, but I was the
Yeah.
best on every team I played with, the best in the area. And my dad used to say, when you were 9 and 10, you didn't understand the dynamics of what was really going on, right? Like you did. Even my daughter, we totally redid her swing this year because she's 5'5". She's got some size on her now. She's going through puberty. So I'm like, she understands hitting now. She understands her body, what she can do. I don't think at 9 years old, kids can. I think it's parents. Take your kid to the cages, like your son, go out and shoot baskets for an hour. Like you can't be with them at all time. You're working, your husband's working. Like you're going to be there. You're going to do as much as you can, but they have to take accountability when they hit middle school to me, where it's like, you have to put the work in beside, like I tell my daughter,
Yeah.
we do a fielding lesson a week. And I'm like, I will pay for that. I'll drive you. I drive her in traffic in Atlanta, do this, but I'm like, I also need to see the next day or the following day, you in the backyard doing some of these drills that they're teaching you. And if you do that, I will continue to take you and let's do this as long as your heart desires. But if you think you're only going to do that one time a week for 1 hour, you're going to be left behind.
Hmm. Well, so I love what you do with Pure Athlete and on the podcast where you do, yes, you have former players and they share their stories. Can you share,
Yeah.
were you a workhorse when you were 8 or 9? I know you said you were obviously super talented at that point and it was there, but based on what you just shared about like your dad saying that you just, what were you like?
No, my dad will tell you. I have an older brother and older sister, and my dad will be like, they work twice as hard as you. Like,
Really?
yes. My dad was like, you'd come home, and he's like, not that you won't want to play football or something, but he's like, you'd want to go up and play Tecmo Super Bowl, and do these things. And my dad was like, I had to kick you in the butt sometimes to get out of the house and do stuff. So again, that's another thing to parents. Like sometimes, like you look at this and like, God gave me an ability. He touched my head, gave me an ability to do some things that other people can't, that my brother and sister never could. And they worked even harder than I did. Now, I grew into that where I loved it. But you know what I hear from parents all the time? They're like, but my daughter loves it. And I'm like, your daughter's not Serena Williams. Serena Williams is 1 in a million, 1 in a billion,
Right.
right? Like Tiger
Right.
Woods is 1 in a billion. Aaron Judge, Paul Skeens, like these people do things that your kids will never be able to do.
Yeah. And it's really fascinating. I spend some time working in IndyCar and we just had an opportunity to talk to a lot of these drivers ahead of the season. And I was sort of connecting these dots of like, what makes these guys tick? And the champion who has won multiple champions, Alex Palou,
Yep.
everyone was talking about him. They're like, we don't know how he does what he does and no one can beat him. And it's like, the guy just has it, but he also does everything right. And they were
Yep.
using words like maximize and he's precise and he's this and he's that. And also though, every one of those guys brought up the importance of team
Yep.
and how there's this level of like camaraderie. I believe camaraderie wins championships. I don't know if that's dumb, but do you agree? Like chemistry, like teams
Oh,
that you
dude.
have been a part of that have been super successful, where has that ranked?
You have bad chemistry, you're not winning. Like I've seen clubhouses be tore down because of bad culture, bad chemistry. And then you've seen teams with lesser talent, but have great chemistry
Mhm.
overcome that and beat them. So I always say that like a good culture doesn't guarantee you winning, but it's going to guarantee you're going to have a better chance than having a bad culture. And this, it's like, I mean, Indiana this year was Signetti. Like they had an unbelievable culture. There wasn't one interview that any player gave that it was about them. Everything was about the team, the culture, the fans. And I'm like, so you know what? They buy into that. They have the talent. Look what happened. And it was incredible.
That gave me chills. And he coached. So I went to James Madison
Yeah.
University, and what he did there was bananas. And yes, I agree fully. It's like it's a secret, special type of belief, you know? So your journey then, you're obviously, an amazing player. And then what happened? What was your trajectory once you hit your middle school years?
Yeah. So the great thing was East Cobb baseball down in Atlanta is huge. Everybody does
Okay.
it. Everybody, I mean, Billy Wagner from up in Virginia, they bring their teams down all the time. Like it's big time competition. The great thing for me was my dad continued to play me with my buddies at home. Now we were on a travel team. We got waxed. Like we went to these tournaments and we got beat down pretty good because everybody else was bringing kids in from everywhere. But we were playing in high level tournaments, right? So I was getting better. I was facing great competition. But you know what the best part was, Lindsay? I played with my best friends. I played with the guys that we still go on vacation. My wife gave a hard time. We all turned 40 2 years ago and went to Mexico for 5 days. And she was like, all y'all did was drink margaritas in the pool for 5 days and talk about the same stories you've told for 25 years. But like, I want my kids to have that. It was the greatest time. And my wife was like, I saw such joy for you. And all my buddies, they went on to be, one's a teacher, one is an anesthesiologist, one like they're very successful, but they never made it. They never played in college. They never played. So my dad could have took me out of that situation and put me with other people, but he knew what playing with my buddies meant. Now, as long as we kept playing good competition, right? Like my dad's like, we can't be playing in some of these tournaments where you're not going to get better and develop. But
Yeah.
so I always give my dad a lot of credit through middle school and stuff. And I had an older sister who played Division III basketball, an older brother who played Division II golf. So like family dynamic was huge for us. So my dad's like, we're not traveling for a week and leaving your mom and those two at home to do whatever. Like we're just not. That doesn't meet our family standards. And that's one thing we talk about a lot in Pure Athlete too. Like, where's the family dynamic in this? If y'all are leaving every weekend, you're never together. Where's your marriage? How are you pouring into each other? Where's the communication? Like, all that goes hand in hand with what you're trying to accomplish. So I just played. My dad let me play baseball, basketball, football, and then I got to ninth grade. I played all three sports. And we had a really good football team. So we played through like mid December and then baseball. So I quit basketball, just did not have the time. I was a great athlete. I couldn't shoot very well, and then it was like I was 6'4", which was decent in high school, but we'd go play some other schools and the dudes are like 6'8", and you're like, I'm not meant for basketball. So my dad let me play all three sports, Lindsay. I played basketball, football, baseball all the way through ninth grade. And then football and baseball just were going so long that there was only about a month off. So I would do football all the way through December, like 10th, 15th. And then we would take 3 weeks off totally. I wouldn't do anything. We'd do Christmas. We'd hang out. My dad's like, you need to rest mentally, physically,
Yeah.
everything. And then we would always go to Hilton Head from like over New Year's to like January 5th. We golf, we do all this stuff as a family. And then we got home and it was like, now we picked up a baseball bat. And I went into baseball and I played baseball all the way through late June. But even those travel teams that played through July, like my mom, July 1st through the 10th, we went to the beach every year. She was like, these are my 10 days to have my kids with me. And like that's what I would do. And I never got pressured by even people would come up to my dad, why are you especially like my junior year, I was gonna be a top first round pick in baseball. They were like, why are you letting your son play football? My dad was like, let him. He's played since he was 6 years old. These are his best friends. Like he loves it. And, I ended up committing to go to Clemson to play football and baseball. And if anything, it made me more money in the draft, right? I was a two sport athlete. So they had to buy me out of out of my college football.
So part of that moral of that story is let them play with their friends, let them do what makes them happy
Yeah,
at the
for
same time.
sure. And but it's got to be competitive, right? Like you have to have a balance. Every kid's different, right? Like if you have three kids, you can't for you, what I think yours are what 11 and 9. You can't
Exactly.
you have to discipline them different probably. You have to, some of them are, respond different to yelling, to
Yeah.
criticism. Like so know each one of your kids and know what helps them out and then go down that journey with them.
What were you seeing that made you feel like you really wanted to go and lean into the pure athlete format? Like, what types of things did you observe, even with your own kids or in your community?
Horrible coaches, horrible parents yelling at their kids when they're 7. I'm like, they can't comprehend. They don't know what's going on. And honestly, stealing the joy away. Like I talk about this a lot. The mental side is never talked about enough. It's always the physical aspect of what an athlete is and all this. And I feel like it's finally starting to come to the forefront with people speaking out about the mental side.
Yeah.
But think about this, like my daughter's in middle school. She's going through puberty. Like she's trying to fit in with all her friends, right? Like you're trying to find out where you belong. So all day you go through school, let's be honest, it's like you're walking on eggshells. Did she say, does he like you? Does this? So now they get done with that. Where was the outlet? When we were growing up, the outlet was sports. Like we went out and had fun. Your mind was free. You were doing this. Now it's
Yeah.
like, hey, we have an hour hitting lesson. Then we got to go to an hour of basketball. There's tons of people doing 2 sports in one day, not just on the same season, but in one day. And I'm like, where does your kid get a relax? Where does your kid get a break? Where do they turn off their head? And so I'm like, all of a sudden these kids are getting to where they can't handle anymore and then they want to quit and it's not a healthy, like that was my thing, let's do this healthy. And I mean we've had over what 120 athletes on, female, male, mental coaches, and they all say the same thing. And so I'm like to these parents, if all these people are preaching the same thing, don't you think they're right? Like don't you think this is the right answer?
And what is the main thing that they're preaching?
Their preaching is to let your kids develop a passion for what they're doing. And I learned this in 2 different themes. My daughter, when she was 6 years old, we signed her up for softball. We went to the first game. I didn't coach that year. And I told my wife, I'm like, we made the worst athletic child ever. I'm like, she sucks. I'm like, I mean, I'm like, what happened? I was 6'4", all athlete. My wife ran track and played tennis in high school. I'm like, where did this go wrong? And now my daughter's 12 and she's a great softball player. She plays flag
Wow.
football and she's really good, but she developed a love for the game, right? So with her loving the game, she wanted to get better. She wanted me to teach her. She wants to go hit and do these things. But I think if I would have pushed that on her at age 8, 9, it would have ended different. And even the way I coach changed. 2 years ago, she was hitting and she swung at a bad pitch. And, my wife gives me crap because I swung at bad pitches all the time, that slider low and away. So, but my daughter swung at a bad pitch and she looked down to me at third and I put my head down and gave the old shake, like, what are you doing? And we
Right.
get in the car after the game and my daughter goes, Dad, I'm gonna be honest with you. When you did that, all the confidence in me just went out the window. And dude, I almost ran off the road. Like it hit me so hard because I'm like, who do the kids look to? They look to their moms and dads. They want support from them. Now, does it mean we're not going to get into it and we're not going to have to? We talk about the car ride home a lot, right? Like where kids want to quit is they play all day, they get in the car, and then their mom or dad goes through this 30-minute thing of all the crap they did wrong. And it's like, they don't want to hear about that right then. So I do a thing with my kids now. I'm coach or I'm dad. So I get in the
Oh,
car.
that's amazing.
I
Yeah.
get I get in the car. I always wear a hat, right? So I have my hat. So I get in the car and I take my hat off and I put it on the dashboard. I got a truck and I'm like, if when the cat's off, I'm dad. And most of the time on the way home, we talk about trips we're going to take, maybe where I'm calling a game next week, just anything, their friends or whatever. And then what we usually do is we go to bed. The next day we wake up. whatever, if it's a school day, if it's a Monday, they go to school. And then that night we maybe sit down and talk for 5-10 minutes. Like, these were a couple of the things that you did wrong and we need to try to work on to correct them. But it gives them time to comprehend. It gives me time to probably calm down. And it's just, they don't feel that pressure of like, God, I'm going to get in the car and I'm going to get blasted for what I did.
Yeah, that is a great tool. I love that.
Yeah.
What do you think is a good baseline for parents if you're not coaching and you're a parent that's on the sideline? I've started to notice some posters that they've got up, like where my
Yeah.
son plays basketball and stuff, and it's like talks about parents. You are not here to coach, like, different things.
Yeah.
But I love that anecdote about the hat. And is there something that you think is a good, point of reference for parents who are maybe, the ones that maybe you need to hold back, maybe you don't, but like, what is good to do on the sidelines?
I think, there's a study that says, who do kids love to come watch and play? You know who's number one on that? Grandparents. You want to know why? Because my dad is as tough as he was on me. I'll watch my daughter not play a great game, and my dad tells her she was the best in the world and gives her a hug and a kiss, right? And I'm like, time out, Dad. Where was that when I played when I was 10?
Right.
We joke about
Right.
it, but honestly, like, kids just, they want support. They need you in their corner, right? Like, so that's what I do with my travel softball team. On Saturday, when we'll play 3-4 games. I tell them, I'm your biggest cheerleader. I'm not coaching. There's only, unless your attitude sucks or you're not hustling, I will never yell at the girls. I'll never raise my voice. I'll never say, as long as they're doing those things, this is y'all's time to go out there. Now, when we practice, I'm loud. I correct things. Like, we're very intense in practice. But in the games, they need support, man. They don't need someone, looking down, or their dad, get your back elbow up. George Brett, who I got real close with Kansas City, he did the greatest thing. He was this kid. He coached his son's travel ball team. And all these dads would sit in the stands, get a hit, swing at this, and just yell at their kids. So George one day called a practice and told all the dads they were going to hit. So
Oh, that's amazing.
George threw BP to every single dad. And he was like, dude, it was embarrassing. These dads sucked. A lot of them couldn't even touch the ball. He was doing this. So George finally at the end of practice was like, will y'all shut up now when your kid's playing? Because you're no good. So if you can't even do it, how do you expect your kid to do it? And I love that. Is that not so good? Like,
That's amazing. And what did the dads do?
they all shut up. And he's like, we had the best season. Kids had fun. We didn't go on to win every game, but he's like, it was healthy. It was fun for the kids, and it took all the pressure off it. And the other thing, and I always talk about this, have realistic expectations for your kids. I think as parents, what I see is these parents set their kids up thinking they can do these things. And it's like, you can't do it. You can't,
Yeah.
you physically can't. Doesn't mean you're not going to get there. Doesn't mean you're going, but like, these parents at 10 years old, right? There might be the 10-year-old kid that's the biggest, strongest, fastest in the school. And so he can do things that other kids can't. Well, don't tell your kid that that's what you should be doing, because they realistically can't. So I always say, don't set your kid up for failure by telling them, hey, go hit a home run. And it's like, if you take your kid out there and throw him 1,000 balls during batting practice, he cannot hit one over that fence. So why are you telling them to do it?
And also, then there's the growth piece. Kids
Yes.
grow at different times, and some just won't, in time. And yeah, that's really great advice too. When you were in the majors, when you think about, I know there have been so many lessons, but like, if there are things that are most important to you as a dad to impart on your kids from your time in the majors, what is that? What are those things?
The way you handle yourself, the way that you walk about helping teammates, being a good teammate. That's what I always tell, like, the old saying, it's easy when you throw for 350 yards to get in front of a camera and say this. It's hard when you've thrown for 112 and 3 interceptions and cost your team maybe the game. I love seeing the dudes get up there and have accountability in what they did, and praise other teammates. That's why David Wright became one of my favorite teammates when I played with the Mets for those 2 years in New York.
Yeah.
Because every game, no matter good or bad for him, the team, he would answer, 80 reporters' questions in that New York clubhouse. And he would always be trying to lift other players on pedestals. And I always said, David knew how good he was. He didn't need to pat himself on the back. He didn't need someone to write an article about him, how good he was. Like he was always praising other teammates. And I say this, like, right? Like you two are raising two kids, 9-11. Like as much as you love seeing your son score 10 points in a game, like, isn't it cool to see your kid help out another kid or like set up another kid that never scores and he's
Yeah.
trying to pass them the ball to score because it's like, man, then we're raising them the right way in the things that truly matter. And so like that's what I preach to a lot of my kids is like, as much as I love sports and you doing great, like living a life of significance and impact will always outweigh what you're doing on the sports field.
Yeah, or like, seeing them, high five or something after
Yes.
somebody does something. You're right. There's nothing that feels better than that. Absolutely. And realizing too, yes, that character is kind of coming through. What about a time where there was something hard that was happening or, a time when I don't want to use the word fail, but you failed at trying to
Yeah.
do something on the field. Daniel Jones was talking about how he gets himself beyond when he throws an interception. And I thought that
Yeah.
was fascinating just to hear. How about for you? What is that mindset? I don't know if you share it with the kids that you coach or not,
Yeah.
but how did you get past any of those moments?
I think in this world that we live in today, right? Like there's so much negativity. There truly is. It blows me away. I'm on Instagram for Pure Athlete and that's it. I can't stand hearing all the negative. Like I said, I'm a very positive person. So even when I sucked, like I found a way to keep myself up and going, but I surrounded myself with like great people that could pour into me, right? Like people that I trust. And I heard a quote, and I'm sure Aaron Rodgers got it from somebody, but it said this year when Mike Tomlin was going through like that's a perfect example, right? Like Mike Tomlin's one of the best human beings and coaches I know,
Yeah.
19 winning seasons, and people are just never happy, right? Like you're never going to make people happy. And I get it. You haven't won a playoff game, you haven't done this stuff, but at the end of the day, like, what truly matters. And so I would find guys and my wife, my mom and dad, like that I knew that knew me. I was grounded in my faith, that I knew that there was a bigger purpose in what I was doing. And realizing that like ultimately, like I said, that's going to be such a small part of your life playing sports. Like if I live to be 80 years old, I played 12 and a half years in the big leagues. It's going to be 13, 14% of my life. Like, so what are you going to do? The other stuff. And that's where I talk about priorities. Like this world has shifted so much. Like when I grew up in my family, it was God first, it was our family second, it was school third, and sports was fourth. And I feel
Mhm.
like that is totally flipped. And now, like, I talk about this a lot on the podcast with my faith. Like families never go to church on Sunday
I was
anymore. They're at
just
this
going to ask you
tournament,
about
this.
this.
And for us, it's a non-negotiable. Like we go to church
Yeah.
on Sunday morning as a family. And now are there a few tournaments throughout the year that we might travel somewhere? Yes. But I'm saying if you're showing your kids that 3 out of 4 weeks, you're going to play on Sunday morning instead of going to church, what are you showing your kids your priorities are?
Yeah, so I actually teach a religious ed class. We have a really complex faith situation because I'm Catholic and
Yeah.
my husband's not. So we drive
Yeah.
our kids to 2 churches, which is
Yeah.
not popular, but it's just what we do.
It
And
works for y'all.
it works. And it's the same exact thing. And it's so funny that you brought that up because I was going to ask you, because I haven't really had the opportunity ever to talk to a pro athlete about that. But the Catholic Church, I'm just going to
Yeah.
share this. They are, they don't understand why there are so many kids. That's what happens. They don't
Yep.
come and they can't, and you understand that is a culture that has crept into the community. Absolutely. And parents that, that you feel like your kids has to be there. And we try to do the same thing. Like we really do try to, if there's a clinic or something, not sign up for the one that's going to cut into that time. Cause
Absolutely.
I think that's really key. Now, to your point, yes, there are tournaments and stuff that like, okay, we
There's
will,
exceptions. Yes, there's
yeah.
no doubt. But
Or
if
I'm
it's
like, hey, the
every
Catholic Church has a 5 o'clock mass the
Yeah,
night before.
yeah, exactly. No, like you have opportunities, but what
But
I'm saying is if every week you're trying to do that, and
yeah,
what's funny is I asked my dad about that because I played travel baseball and did this, and
yeah.
that's where my dad said, son, when we grew up in Atlanta, when you were younger, games on Sundays didn't start till 1 o'clock. Like they would never book tournaments. But now
Right.
you know as well as I do, AU basketball,
Yep.
baseball, it's all money, man. They're making money, money, money by starting 8 o'clock on Sunday mornings doing this, and people are just doing it. And what I want to bring awareness is you have choices. And if you're on a team and the coach is like, no, you can't miss on Sunday mornings, you know what? Go find a different team. There's a better team for your kid. Or if you go
Yeah.
on that team, be very upfront that's like, hey, we're going to miss a few Sundays for church, but every Sunday, we're not going to be at the ballpark at 9 a.m. And
Yeah.
set that expectation right off the bat.
That's really great advice. Just be clear about it, own it. Um, yeah, and maybe there's a happy medium or some sort of understanding at least that you can accomplish. I really appreciate that advice. I think that's
Yeah.
great. And because it's something that I wish it was the way that it was when your dad was talking about that, because it's
Yeah.
just
You
a
never worry
bummer.
about it. He's like,
Yeah,
we,
and it's a
we play
bummer that
all
it has
day.
to be Sunday.
We play all day Saturday. And then your first game Sunday was at 1 o'clock. So,
Yeah. Yeah, and by the way, I I actually checked a box to like fill in for a teacher with the religious ed thing, and that person ended up not being able to teach. So that's how I ended up as a teacher, and I did not feel at all like that I was qualified to do this. But what I started doing is I use sports to teach my kids,
yes.
and they love it because I literally will pull, sometimes it's just quotes from a post game where a player thanks God or whatever. I do think that there's just so much value in the lessons that come from anyone's triumph or hardship or whatever it is. It's such a tool to teach like the bigger life lessons, you know?
Absolutely. And that's why, right? Like why you want your kids to play sports. Why I want my kids to play sports is the life lessons they learn. And I dig into that with parents. I'm like, what's your goal? Your kid's 10. What's your goal for them this year playing on a basketball team? And it's not like if the first word's like, man, I hope they drop 20, right? Or they have a double double or do this, like, we might need to talk. Like, there might be some issues going on that you need to do it. But it's like, I want my kids to learn a work ethic, being a great teammate, man, failing. Like, we don't talk about that enough. The greatest lessons I ever learned are from adversity. Like, I remember, my wife, she speaks the truth, man. She was an English teacher, went to Georgia. We've known each other since third grade. So we started dating in high school. And after 9 years in the big leagues, I had a horrible year in 2013. We had just had our first baby. We had two miscarriages. Like it was really rough. We finally had a baby, and I was playing for the Giants in San Fran. So, you know, a 1 week old baby can't travel. So I was out there all by myself. I
Yeah.
became depressed. I was brutal. So I had to sign a minor league deal the next year, and I ended up on the El Paso Chihuahuas, the AAA team for the San Diego Padres. So my wife's my yeah, oh yeah. My wife brings a 9-month-old out to El Paso, right? We get a 1-bedroom apartment.
Oh my God.
Needless to say, we have a beautiful house at home on a golf course on 3 acres, and she's living in a 1-bedroom apartment. But I was the first 2 or 3 weeks out there, I was horrible. I was feeling sorry for myself. I wasn't playing well. And my wife one night was like, look, if you're gonna suck, then just come home. Like, let's go home. I I'm not enjoying living in this renovan and driving my 9-month old, and she's like, right across from the stadium, you look down, there's Juarez, Mexico, and it's like capital murder of the world, murder capital of the world. And
Oh,
but she taught me something even more. She's like, you're so worried about yourself right now. You've been in the big leagues for 9 years and you have 25 guys on this team that are dying to get one day in the big leagues, right? Like waiting for that call. They
yeah.
want you to help them answer questions, do this. And it totally shifted my perspective. And I spent the next 3 months, I got back to the big leagues and played another, 3.5 years, but it shifted my perspective, man. And I started working with these kids in the cage. I started going out early, teaching them some things in the outfield. And you know what happened? I fell in love with the game again. I had fun. I started smiling. I started laughing. And it's like, but we take it too serious, right? And we're so worried about what's in it for us that we forget, literally that being a servant, helping others is the single greatest thing you can do.
And you think about, right. It's like, and I think part of what happens there is expectations, and you get in your head. You're exactly right. It's like there are so many factors just in life that sort of compile from time to time and make you lose sight of that. But I think what's really important is that you can always find that back. And that's what you did.
Absolutely. I did. And it's tough conversations, right? It's my wife telling me,
Yes.
she told me off, man. Like I was thinking we were going to have a different
Amazing.
dinner. She was going to listen to me whine. And she's like, enough. I'm done. I can't do it.
That is so cool. Your wife sounds amazing. I would love to hang with her.
Yeah.
And also the humor there, the
Oh,
humor.
yeah.
First of all, that's a movie I would watch because it sounds like an amazing Disney film. But the fact that it's the Chihuahuas, like
Oh,
just, do you know what I mean? Like you can't
dude,
be.
I still have the jersey. We have a picture of Emma Kate, my 9-month-old, hugging me in the Chihuahuas jersey. It's one of my favorite pics
Oh
that
my
we
God, we might
have.
need to get that
And
picture to show.
it's it's unbelievable. And so, like anything though, like right, like we as parents for our kids, they're going to lose track of things, right? They want to be the best they can be. And so it's coming beside them. I actually, you're going to make fun of me, but I'm technologically awful. The only reason I know how to get on this is because we do Riverside now and everybody's taught me. My wife hates it because I don't have a Google Calendar. So this is my calendar. It's old
I
school.
love.
I have a
Wow.
handwritten
Oh, you
calendar.
print it off
Oh,
yourself?
yeah. Staple it, do all this stuff. But I have a quote every month at the top that I share with our kids. And the quote this month is the goal is not perfection, it's awareness and adjustment. And I think our kids are so scared to fail because of it's on social media, right? Or you can
Yes.
film it now.
Right.
A guy striking out, swinging at a bad pitch, jumping off sides, whatever it is. Where when we came up, we didn't have that. No one, unless you had the big VCR camera, you weren't filming anything.
Of course.
So kids are scared to do it. And I tell them all the time, it's perfection's never going to happen. Being the best isn't always going to happen, but it's being aware and then adjusting. So let's figure this out. My daughter's great now. Last year, the third softball tournament we had, she got in the car and she was like, man, did I suck today? And I was like, I started laughing because I'm like, yes, you did. Like you were horrible. There's no doubt about it. And we laughed together. And the next day we're like, all right, let's put extra work in this week, right? Like, let's go to the cages
Yeah.
2 or 3 more times. She was aware that she wasn't good. We made the adjustments and she came out and played great the next weekend. Like, that's all you want.
When she laughed with you about that, were you wearing your hat or did you have no hat for
No, I
you?
had no hat. And that's why when she said that, it was funny
Yeah.
because I think she actually wanted to talk about it. She was very mad. And I told her, we'll go in it tomorrow. But I did have to get the jab. And I was like, you did suck today. I was like, that was not a great day at the
Oh my
office.
God.
But it's like I struck out over 1,000 times in my career in the big leagues. Like, it's going to happen. I tell all the teams I coach, like, this is a game. Every game's a game of failure. How can you get better? And how can you learn from it?
So good. I had to ask my mom friends if they had any questions because I was so excited to be able
Yeah.
to speak to you about this. So I have a couple just real quick
Yeah.
before we say bye, and I wanted to get your take on this. So one of my friends said kids are pushed so much these days to specialize. I think it's a lot for growing bodies to handle. I would like to know what are maybe the top 3 things that Jeff recommends for kids in order to increase longevity in sport and not end up with an injury like a torn ACL or other major injury before they're finished growing?
Oh, man, I love that question because all the athletes I ask, none of them ever specialized. Misty made trainer. She was going to Long Beach State to play soccer, you know?
Oh, yes.
And look, Rowdy Gaines, who we had on, God, I loved him. We had so much
Yeah.
fun. He never even started swimming until his junior high school because he got cut from his basketball and baseball team. And he was
Oh
like,
my God.
my
That's
dad,
amazing.
and he's like, my dad was like, swimming's your last thing left, buddy. It's like, that's all you can do. And so, but I will tell you this, we have a episode and tell her
Okay.
Dr. Neary, he's at Emory, in Atlanta, and he has the best information on that, on injuries in kids that specialize too early. And it is through the roof, through the
Okay.
roof.
Amazing.
And my sister, her daughter is a senior at Whitfield Academy down here and played basketball all the time. The amount of torn ACLs in these young females is alarming. It's
Really?
ridiculous. And I talk about it in baseball, the amount of Tommy Johns. I saw Dr. Andrews 2 years ago in the playoffs, and he told me he had just done 3 Tommy Johns on 12-year-old boys. And I'm like, what?
Why is that? Because they're
They never have a break. They're throwing nonstop. they're doing these things. And I'm like, your body, your mind, all that needs a break. And that's the great thing. Kirk Cousins came on with us and talked about it. He's like, I played basketball in high school for 2.5 months. He's like, I was not good. I was like the 11th person on the team. I barely played. But he's like, I played with my buddies and it got me a break from the other sports. So when I did crank back up playing baseball and football, like I was excited to be there. I've heard Max Scherzer talk about this all the time. Like in high school, college, he didn't throw all the time. He came up as a bullpen guy. So he had tons of bullets left in his arm when he started playing.
Wow.
Now
Yeah.
these kids are coming up and they're all Tommy John by high school, if not first or second year of college. And I'm like, shame on us as parents, as coaches, for allowing this stuff to happen.
That is
So I
so
say more than anything, I would tell your friend, like I give it from more than anything from an injury perspective for your son or daughter, like to keep them healthy. They cannot do the same thing every day over and over.
So in that vein, the next one was, what does he suggest for kids who want to switch sports later but aren't up to speed enough since kids have specialized so much? Is private lessons, specialized skills programs, or rec leagues, etc., the best way?
Yeah, and I get that question because parents, what they feel like a lot of time, my wife included, me and her butt heads on this because there'll be times like, well, are they going to be left behind, right? Like,
Yeah.
are they going to be so far behind? And that's where I'm like, I don't buy that. Like, if your kid starts playing baseball in fifth grade, who cares? Lorenzo Cain, the center fielder who I played with in Kansas City, won a World Series, all that. He didn't start playing organized baseball till he was in 10th grade in high school and went on to a 15-year big league career. Now I get there's outliers, there's this and that, but if your kid is decent and he has a passion for it, then yeah, if you start him later, like in fifth, sixth, seventh grade, you might have to work a little harder, right? Like you might have to go to the cages or you might have to do something more. But I will never believe the whole they start too late. Like I don't like I didn't all my son's friends played football and I didn't let him play until this year, till he was 10 for the first time. Cause I was like, I didn't want him to take the big hit, never want to play again. And I'm like, so was he behind when he went out there to start the year? Yeah. He didn't know a lot of the plays. He didn't know where he's going. And so, you know what my advice was to him? Ask your coaches thousands of questions. Be a sponge out there, man. Soak up everything, learn everything. And all of a sudden, by the end of the year, he had caught on. Now we're doing flag football. He'll play football in the fall and he'll be right where he needs to be. But this whole idea,
Tackle in the fall.
yeah, he'll do tackle again, and he loved it. But my point was like he was big enough to understand now and maybe get hit hard, but he wasn't hurt. I didn't want my kid at 6'7" to take that big hit and be like, I don't want to play anymore because it hurt.
Yes. I love that. Be a sponge. That's great. Okay. And this is the last one. My friend said, my thoughts on this are more around how a lot of kids who are playing all are forced into playing on these club teams because we've taken away sports as part of the school curriculum. And then when they get to a school, like a high school, the ability to play on those sports teams is limited because they play at such an elite level. So in some way, we've taken sports out of schools, which I think is destructive. Anyway, there seems to be a pervasive thought process around communities like ours that sports, and particularly unique sports, are a ticket into elite colleges. So how does one balance all of that when it feels like the odds are stacked against these kids from the start?
They are. I mean, I love that question because the odds are stacked against them, right? Like they are. You want to tell them that. And some of these parents, I want to tell, if you actually saved all the money from when your kid was 8 to 18 that you put into lessons and all this stuff, you probably could pay at least 2 years of college, right? Like
That's true.
you could, but my whole thing with that again is like I actually agree with that. And Julie Foudy is one of my favorite people we have on, and we had her on. She does TNT soccer, so we've stayed in contact with. Both working for Warner Brothers, although who knows how all that stuff's going to go now with the TV stuff. Whatever we're going to be called at some point, but. We talk a lot because she's like, they wanted her daughter to not play high school soccer and just play club. And she's like, and I don't know how you are, but like some of my greatest times were playing from a high school with my buddies, wearing that school across your chest like it meant something. And so my dad didn't take that away. And Julie, I love it. She gave her daughter, she's like, no, you're playing for your high school.
Good for
Yes, it might not be as competitive. It might not be whatever, but like I always say, have a pulse of what your kid does because ultimately you're in charge. You know what I'm saying? Don't let a coach, don't let an instructor, all these instructors, that are doing this, and there's some great ones out there, don't get me wrong, but like if you're paying them $150 for an hour pitching lesson and you're doing it every week, of
yeah.
course they're going to call me and be like, "Hey, she's really doing good. She needs to pitch." And I'm like, "Yeah, because she's paying you $600 this month." Like, you pay me $600, I'll call your coach and be like, "Man, she's ready." And so I'm
Right.
like, again, that's where I come, like, have a feel, but let your kids, because of what she said at the end, the odds are stacked against you. And I'm not saying don't dream big. People ask me all the time, when did you think that you could play at an elite college level? And you asked me or my dad, what until going into my senior year, honestly. I played on Team USA. We went to Cuba for 3 weeks. It's actually really cool. We played with Castro in the championship game, sitting right behind home plate. Like it
Whoa.
was surreal. We were down there for 3 weeks and it was unbelievable. But I came home from that and I made the all tournament team. And I never played any of those tournaments. So if you actually go look at the rankings for top 100 juniors in the state in the country, I was not on the rankings. And all of a sudden, going into my senior year, the rankings come out and I was sixth.
Whoa.
Because I finally went to something that everybody was there. But it's like, so if I got ranked in ninth grade, what does that matter? Who cares? No one was drafting me then. I
Yeah.
wasn't committing to a college. So I always like to say, like, when you get to high school, if your kid has something special and you should know it by then, and people will tell you, then I'm all on board, man. Like, go in with your kid and give them the best opportunity to play in college, to get drafted, to do whatever. But like you said, the odds are stacked against you that that's your kid. And so, what if that's not your kid? What do you want? Again, and what we've talked about for the last 45 minutes. I want my kid to have the best experience, play with friends, and learn the greatest possible lessons they can.
Oh my God. I would just love to continue this conversation for 4 hours.
Oh yeah,
Jeff, you are the best. This is so insightful. Thank you for taking the time to answer those questions because, um, gosh, like you covered so much that I feel like is right at the core of not just where our kids are now, mine at 11 and 9, yours at similar ages that run that gamut, but where they're going to be for a while. So, before we let you go, what are the goals for your kids playing sports? You've talked about them, but can you just, in a nutshell, reiterate so people
yeah.
have to take with them?
I want my kids to learn how to work for something. That if you work, you're going to get better, right? Like you take ownership, accountability. We don't talk about that enough, right? Like teach your kids how to be accountable. Like, if you're going to put this work in, you're going to get better. I want them to learn how to be great teammates. Like you look at all the years in the big leagues and my skills the last year or two probably diminished some. But you know what? I kept getting the benefit of the doubt when I played in Philly and then back with the Braves because it's like he's a great teammate, right? Like people
Yeah.
want good teammates on the team, and you're
It's
going to
like
be
just
a
having him there matters.
absolutely. He's going to
Right.
invest in other kids that we have and teach them the right way to do it. So be a great teammate. Learn how to be unselfish, right? Like there's times that you're not going to get the game winning basket or the game winning hit, but be excited for your friends. Be excited for your teammates who are going through. And then the best lesson I think you can learn is learn how to fail. Learn how to fail and fight back because man, is there anything better than watching your kid be upset about something, do this, whether it's school, right? Like it's maybe a math test where they got a 50 on and you see them spend the next 3 nights, an hour or two and work and they get that grade and it's 96 and you're like, holy
Yeah.
crap. Like this came together, right? And so that's what I learned all stuff from adversity. I mean, those were the greatest lessons I ever learned. And as parents, though, and it's hard to do, right? But sometimes you got to let your kids go through adversity. Don't bail them out. Don't bail them out. I know it's tough. Me and my wife do this all the time. I actually sent my little 7-year-old daughter to bed last night with only eating a little bit of dinner because we had warned her time after time. She was misbehaving. It was done. And my wife kept wanting to go up there and take her something. She's going to be hungry. And I'm like, nope, she's done. And so I was like, she will learn. She got up, make the biggest breakfast you've ever seen this
I was
morning.
going to say what
And
happened.
was,
That's awesome.
but she was in the happiest mood. She kissed me, she kissed my wife, said bye, all this stuff. So my point is, it's like kids are resilient, but they need to learn lessons. They got to build toughness.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, that stuff you said too about like just being someone that people, a good teammate, that applies in every single industry, not just sports. Those are lessons that
Anything.
you just said that is like the key for all of it.
It's like you with your job, the people that are going to brighten your day when you see them. And it's
Right.
like they're going to bring. So I want to be around those people.
Yeah. And I mean, sometimes I watch my husband and what he does in his work. I sort of marvel that like he really knows everyone's name and he really
Yep.
takes the time. And sometimes I'm like, how does he like know everyone's, but that stuff really matters. That's a really big deal. And it's like, it's not that hard,
No. And to one person that probably never gets noticed, has a job that no one ever says great job or thanks.
Yeah.
And by Craig going by and just saying, hey, how's it going, John? And knowing his name lights the world up for that dude for the rest of the day.
Yes. Yes, indeed. All right. Well, Jeff, I hope to talk to you again.
You
And
too.
we'll bring more questions, but you are the best. Thank you so much. And good luck as the season kicks off and just with all your work and with Pure Athlete.
Oh yeah. I got my calendar right here. All the kids' schedule, man. Ready to roll. Yeah, no crap.
I mean, the Chihuahuas, that story, if that doesn't give you perspective, I don't know what does. I am so grateful to Jeff for joining us on Things No One Tells You and just being so honest and open. And listen, I hope that all of your kids make it to the big leagues in any sport that they're in. But no, I think this conversation is so important. I am sure if you guys have kids that are in youth sports, maybe this is something that's crossed your mind. But I know I certainly think about it as we're navigating just the love of the sport and what we think we need to do to get our kids to the next level. I also, honestly, I just love the conversation about faith with him. I think that's really important and really cool to hear his perspective. So everything that Jeff has talked about in terms of Pure Athlete, what they're doing, you can find that information in our show notes. As always, if you liked this episode, if you're loving things you're hearing on Things No One Tells You, please, like, subscribe, review. The best way you can help us probably is sharing an episode with a friend. Spread the word. Thanks for being a part of this community, and I can't wait to see you next time. Thanks so much for joining me. I can't wait to see you back here next week. Please don't forget, follow and subscribe to Things No One Tells You. And of course, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, don't forget to leave a 5-star review because that's really what helps people get more listeners. We would love to grow this community. We are so grateful that you're a part of it. See you next time.